Hello everyone, I'm Matt with New Life Church, and we're continuing our study of the Hall of Faith. That's what I like to call it. Many people do, and that's Hebrews 11. Last week we talked about how God created the heavens and earth in verses 1 through 3 of chapter 11, and now we'll cover a few more verses of chapter 11, starting in verse 4. It says, "By faith Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and through it he being dead still speaks." Now you may remember the names Cain and Abel, and those are, of course, the first two children of Adam and Eve. And surprisingly, you'll find that story in Genesis. We're going to look at that story, Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. Now Adam knew his wife Eve, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, "I have acquired a man from the Lord." Then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of fruit of the fruit of the ground to the Lord. Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And the Lord respected Abel and his offering, but he did not respect Cain and his offering. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So a question that people have asked for a long time is, what was it about the Cain's sacrifice that God didn't respect, Abel's that God did respect? Probably the most common thing that makes the most sense to me is that it wasn't a blood sacrifice. In Genesis chapter 3, we see that when Adam and Eve sinned, God killed an animal to get the skins. There are other theories out there, but that's what makes the most sense to me. But the point is that God didn't respect Cain's offering. And Cain knew it. God had a way of making sure they knew. And so, what does God do when there is a problem with something you're doing? Is it immediately send a lightning bolt down on you?
No. He usually warns you.
Yes. He always... There is a warning right now for everyone. It's called the Bible. And at this time, they didn't actually have the Bible written yet, but God still gave a warning, because God is not the kind of God to just give no warnings and just decide, "I don't like you." There are people who seem to think that just because God does have standards of righteousness and is the judge of all, that he's just randomly doing this with no warnings, but there are warnings. Verse 6, "So the Lord said to Cain, 'Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door, and its desire is for you, but you should rule over it.'" So Cain is given a warning. He's given a warning. Okay, you need to make an attitude adjustment about this. Don't get mad over this. You just straighten out what you're doing. He has a warning. Sin lies at the door. How many times have we gotten warnings about different things, whether it's from God or something else, Seems that every every electronic device you have gets a warning attached to it. I can see a warning on an extension cord right there.
Do not plug in water.
Yeah. You know, there are warnings, and you know, as in the secular world, if you disobey the warning, you can't sue because it's your own fault.
Mm-hmm.
And when you ignore God's warning, it is not God's fault. So Cain was warned, and so what did he do? Did he fall on his knees in repentance?
Not at all.
Unfortunately, no. No, sin was lying at his door, and its desire was for him. And unfortunately, he was ruled by sin. I've never killed anybody, but there are times I've sinned. Everyone of us sins. So what happened here is in verse 8. Now Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and killed him. And that's the first recorded murder, first recorded human death in the Bible. Now you can imagine, how did this take place? Were they talking and all of a sudden out of nowhere they attacked him?
No, usually took some time to think about it, and
Yeah.
stew over it,
Mm-hmm.
and to plot it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that it was in a way that Abel didn't see what was coming.
Premeditated murder.
Premeditated murder. Killed his own brother. There have been times when I've been mad as a hornet at my brother.
I've had a mother-in-law.
But the thought of this, hard to come up with a worse murder. As far as the emotion involved, but he did it. Cain killed his brother. And why? Because his brother was more pleasing to the Lord. His sacrifice was more pleasing to him. God was better with Abel than with him. Jealousy. It's a good thing that siblings don't have jealousy anymore.
What?
Yeah.
We need a new Bible teacher.
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's something to think about whenever you're feeling jealous of your brothers and sisters. The first murder was done over jealousy. Just something to think about. So do you think that when he did it, even if Abel didn't see it coming, Mom and Dad, Adam and Eve, are somewhere else, there was someone who saw this happen?
Right.
Don't think that what you do in secret isn't seen by God. You might fool me, you might fool someone else, but not God. Verse 9, Then the Lord said to Cain, Where is Abel your brother? Yeah, that's an interesting thing, the way that God approaches, you know. I remember in chapter 3, Adam, Eve, where are you? You know.
Yep.
He knows the answer, but he's asking the question anyway. So, what should Cain have done at that point?
Repent.
Confess and be honest.
Yeah, repent. But is that what he did?
No.
Not
He
at all.
ran.
He lied.
I have a feeling he was a red-headed stepchild. He was a red-headed child, I'll put it that way. What stepchild?
He said, I do not know. I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Which is an interesting question of itself. Now, the truth is, in a literal sense, he wasn't his brother's babysitter there. But in another sense, we should be each other's, our brothers and sisters, our keepers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
By saying, I don't know, am I babysitting him? You know?
Today, yes.
Mhm. And he said that as God said, what have you done?
Lots of questions.
Lots and lots of questions. You ever done anything so unlike anything you normally do, you know, a sin, and you're just looking at, what did I just do?
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing? I've asked myself that question. But in this case, it's God asking Cain, what have you done? And then he's going to say something that goes right back to Hebrews. The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. What did that verse say in Hebrews? Though he being dead still speaks.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good. And since Cain got his warning before he did it, he had his chance to repent there. And he didn't do that, so what's left?
Judgment.
Judgment. So now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand.
Oh.
When you till the ground,
Yeah.
it shall no longer yield its strength to you. Honestly, that sounds to me like every farmer show that I've ever seen on television or in the movies. It seems no matter what they plant. Now, if that's really the way it was, there'd be no farmers. It
Right.
seems every time they do
How's Dad doing?
entertainment, they do that. But think about that. How think about that. He was a farmer, and now nothing he does is gonna work out right. He's gonna work and work and work, and his crop is not gonna yield. A fugitive and a vagabond, you shall be on the earth. Well, it goes without saying, if none of your work will turn out, you're going to be a vagabond.
Yep.
Fugitive, of course, because he killed Abel. Adam and Eve will be mad at him, want him to.
Yeah.
Any other brothers and sisters that he already had that weren't mentioned yet, they would be after him. Anybody. He's,
Well, probably there were sisters anyway. The sisters
Yes.
never got recorded.
yeah. And Cain did have a wife at the time, so
Yeah.
obviously Adam and Eve had at least one daughter for him, and
Hopefully one daughter for the other one.
but point being that no one's going to be happy with him. They didn't have a specific system in place of justice, you know, like here in America, there's a certain penalty depending on what state you're in, life sentence or death penalty.
Right.
But certainly a fugitive, he'll be. And so, how much remorse is he feeling?
Not a whole lot.
Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. God is so much more merciful than me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Praise God, he is. You know, I wouldn't have had enough patience to deal with me, let alone Cain and everybody else.
Mm.
Actually, you already have. So have we. We're more patient with ourselves, with our sins, because we justify our sins sometimes.
Yes, we do. I'm saying if I were in God's position,
Yeah.
I'd be such a worse God. I would not be a good
Oh,
God.
there you
at
go.
all.
You'd be such more worse God. I like that idea.
You would stroke everybody dead.
Yeah.
Strike them dead.
Mm-hmm. You know, Cain murders his brother. First, he gets warned that this is kind of thing is coming. Then he does it. Then he denies it.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when he's punished, he's just saying, "My punishment is too bad."
Well, we could just go ahead and kill you. Start all over again. You can't do that.
Mm-hmm. So, my punishment is more than I can bear. Surely you have driven me out this day from the face of the ground. I shall be hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond on the earth. At least he's admitting that God's judgment is going to stick. That he's not going to be able to avoid it. And it will happen that anyone who finds me will kill me. You know, but God was merciful again. And again and again and again. Yes, absolutely. Instead of saying, "Yeah, well, you deserve it." The Lord said to him, therefore whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark on Cain, lest anyone finding him should kill him. So what we learn about Abel? Because that's
Dead.
yes, but even being dead, he speaks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, he's the first one into eternity, the first human into eternity.
The first martyr.
Yeah, first martyr. First human to be with the Lord after Adam and Eve sinned. Really, you know, because of faith. He had faith in God, and had a great contrast against him, someone who did not put his faith in God.
Right.
Then we go on to verse 5 of Hebrews 11. And we're going to someone else. By faith, Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. So, what do you know about Enoch? That wasn't just said.
He didn't die.
Yeah, he did not
The
die.
Lord caught him up.
Genesis chapter 5, verses 18 through 24 is where he's mentioned.
That's pretty much it, too.
Yeah. Genesis 5.
Can you imagine? Your first child was at 162 years old. You were 162 years old before you had a kid.
Well, that was just there to prove that it's not months. There are some who say that the years in the Bible there were months. Actually, there are some that was a lot fewer months. There were some who were like 30 or 40 years old. Where we couldn't have been months. But back then the earth was much better. You can find out a lot of stuff about that on the Answers in Genesis.org website. So we're in Genesis chapter 5, verse 18. Jared lived 162 years and begot Enoch. After he begot Enoch, Jared lived 800 years, had sons and daughters. So all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. So,
Jared actually lived 800 years after.
yeah,
962 years he lived.
yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah,
millennium.
almost the whole millennium. And 65 years now. So that's 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72. So if this was months.
962 years.
Yeah. So with Enoch, if this was months, which is what some people say, he was 5 or 6 years old when he had his first son.
Oh.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Methuselah, some may remember him, the one who lived the oldest, and the first recorded mention of my first name. Form of my first name anyway, but so then verse 21. Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch, what did he do? Walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters.
How many days are in a year?
365.
Yeah.
And that's how old he was at this point.
Each year for each day of each year, 1 year for each day of our timetable.
That's a lot.
How many of us want people to say that about us?
We
Walk with God.
for 300 years.
It seems like a miracle to completely walk with God for a full day. You know? And then what happened? So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not,
God took
for God took him. Yeah, so I've heard one person put it this way: he was walking with God all that time, and one day God said, "You know, you're closer to my place than yours."
Let's go home.
Yeah. And of course, that's like the first rapture too. But just, it doesn't say very much about him, but he walked with God all that time.
That's the biggest important thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I know. Just would be interesting to hear exactly what all he did, you know. I would imagine he was trying to encourage others to walk with God. I'm sure he was. And you understand, I would have loved to hear precise things of what he did in his walk with God. Maybe you could also find some good advice for how to walk with God.
Yeah.
Yep.
Considering Methuselah lived until the beginning of the flood.
Yeah. Yes. That was his son, Methuselah. I mean, as it said in Hebrews, he had this testimony that he pleased God. That's what we strive for, to please God. And then Hebrews adds a little thing about pleasing God. But without faith, it is what?
Impossible to please him.
Yes, I've heard of someone saying that that if you somehow, and I don't know how in the world anyone would be able to do it, but if you manage to obey, like the Ten Commandments or this or that,
Right.
that you'll have to go to heaven, because even though it's impossible to do that anyway, but even if someone managed it, if they had no faith, if they were just just out of,
Yeah, perfect.
yeah. That wouldn't please God anyway.
Mm-mm.
Without faith, it is impossible to please Him. For he who comes to God must believe that He is, that He is. You know, nowadays it's pretty popular to not believe that He is. Atheism is getting more and more rampant. People who are afraid of the light come up with this fairy tale of how everything came from nothing and nobody did it.
Right.
But you must believe that He is.
Like I said, the atheist is living the fairy tale, not us.
Yes, absolutely. But they stubbornly hold on to it. How much more stubbornly do we need to hold on to Jesus?
Mhm.
But he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. If you diligently seek God, it is not for nothing. First, you diligently seek Him for salvation, and then for abundant life He's promised, and rewards in heaven and in this life. God is, and He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. And that's something we need to remember, because so many times when something doesn't go our way, tragedy happens. It does in all of our lives. We suddenly have this tendency to just, what good is it that I serve God? I prayed and this didn't happen. We get this idea in our head that if everything doesn't go our way, God's not fair.
It's true.
It is true. And first of all, if God were fair, we'd have all been struck dead
Long time
really
ago.
early in life.
Mhm.
But even that aside, even though there are things that we have to go through, God will take care of it. We have to have faith in that. That whatever we go through for His sake will be rewarded. Whether this life or the next life, we have to have faith. That's what this whole chapter is about, is having faith, trusting God. And when we go through these trials, that's when we need to trust God the most. That He will bring us through the trial. Yes, there's a song that says sometimes He calms the storm, sometimes He calms His child. And that's what we need to let Him calm us, to bring us through whatever trials He's allowed to go in our life. We need to trust Him. Hope this has been a blessing. If it has, please like, share, and subscribe, and comment. Talk to us. We'd love to hear from you. If this has encouraged you, if you have a prayer request, if you want any other information from us, we would love to talk to you. So please do. Love to hear from you. God bless.